Alright people, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification. That way you'll know when I upload the next video and you'll be supporting my channel. Follow me on Twitter. Every time I upload a new video, I'll be tweeting. Ladies and gents, I'm UX and this is World War 1 Christmas Truce, Letters from the Trenches, Extra History Part 2 by this channel, Extra Credits. Yes, this second part of the Christmas special, I guess, the Christmas Truce they had in World War 1, which basically tells you that, it was more of the war of the egotistical people in power rather than common people, because clearly common people didn't give a shit. Right? Oh, look at that, we are fighting. But it's Christmas. How about we just call it quits and play soccer or something? That's just surreal. But yeah. Yesterday was a fierce and terrible onslaught of Christmas packaging into our trenches. So began our soldiers' letter home after the Christmas truce of World War 1. So yeah, Hitler was in World War 1, right? Corporal Hitler, right? He didn't like this truce. No shit, right? I mean, you could already see him as Hitler even here, I guess, somewhat. But then again, after watching oversimplified video of Hitler, it doesn't surprise me. And also, Hitler was one of those people, right, who runs between the artillery to, send letters and things, right? Runners or whatever they're called. Hitler was one of those people like that. Goddamn, imagine he survived that and then he did the World War II. Alright, let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more, and by subscribing you'll be supporting my channel. Check out the lyrics and there's a link in the description. Check out the cards, check out the ink cards, and yeah, let's watch it.
This was a letter to a German newspaper in December of 1914. Yesterday there was a fierce and terrible onslaught of Christmas packages into our trenches. No man was spared. In the confusion, one soldier suffered a salami impaled straight into his stomach. Another had raisins from an exploding pastry fly directly into his eyes. A third had the misfortune of having a bottle of cognac fly into his mouth. This little holiday special is brought to you by World of Tanks. Use the invite code ARMISTICE if you're a new player who wants to check out the game. World War I was a letter-writing war, one where pencil and paper were a soldier's line of communication with friends and family, and reading those letters provides some insight into what life was like in those trenches. So today, let's read some excerpts from those soldiers' holiday letters. Now, of course, none of us at Extra Credits have ever experienced being deployed over the holidays, so real quick, I want to hand the mic over to somebody who has. Here is Wargaming's military specialist Richard Cutland, back again to give us a little insight.
In my 30 years of service, I was extremely fortunate to only spend around 6 Christmases away from home and family. The first was spent lying in a muddy ditch in Northern Ireland, where we had been ordered to set up an observation post to watch the comings and goings of a known IRA terrorist. Cold, wet, hungry and tired, watching someone else celebrate Christmas with family and friends. It was certainly a low point for us all.
Seriously.
As a young soldier, the easiest thing to do was not think about it. It was merely another day amongst a multitude of other days. The real heartbreak occurred after marriage and children. It was wrenching to explain why Daddy would not be there on such a special day.
Oh god, this story is just gonna be heavy, right? Because certain times people really wonder, like, certain people like soldiers who are on duty, right? Who are, overseas. How are, people like that can, let go of certain things and, I don't know, don't let that emotions get in the way. How are they strong enough? Only thing I can think of that they basically train themselves to literally not think about it, because otherwise I can't even understand that. Like, it would be really hard, right? Certain things that happen on the battlefield, right? Some of your best friends just get blown, besides you can't just, get shaken there, otherwise you die, right? Oh, look at that, you just missed your kid's birthday. You saw your kid when the kid was 2 months old and now the kid is way too big. You barely even see your kid. I don't even know how somebody can get past that. I guess only thing I can think of is that they don't think about it. They train themselves in a way they literally block themselves thinking about any of that and just focus on what they're doing. Military, things, I guess.
Tales of helping Santa at the North Pole or having to feed the reindeer quickly wore thin as my children grew older and wiser. A soldier's wife has much to contend with, and my own wife's angst and worry during any operational tour was compounded when I was away for the holidays.
Seriously?
The army's always tried their best if circumstances allowed. If you were near a headquarters, the chefs would knock up a Christmas dinner with all the trimmings. Well, perhaps not all, but they did their best with what was available. Unfortunately, sitting with 100 men wearing paper hats was not quite the same as Christmas dinner with your family. Yet we were all aware it was necessary to spend such periods away. And let's face it, it was part of the job. But it was always a killer to be told that a deployment was imminent and Christmas would be cancelled. So to all those servicemen and women who find themselves away for this very special time, I salute you and wish you and your families peace and happiness.
Thank you, Richard. Now let's set the scene.
Your willpower has to be a whole another level for you to do this kind of thing. So every time I hear somebody is a veteran, right, who served a lot, there's a different type of respect I have. Because I can't really imagine and process all that, how a person goes through all that psychologically. And obviously the wife too, the level of anxiety she would have, worrying about, a husband in tour because God knows what would happen there. Worrying about kids because, have to make sure the kids don't get sad since the father is not there.
It's Boxing Day, 1914, and Private Henry Williamson is writing home about the most extraordinary Christmas of his life. I'm writing from the trenches. In my mouth is a pipe presented by the Princess Mary. In the pipe is tobacco. Well, of course, you say, but wait. In the pipe is German tobacco from a German soldier. Yes, a live German soldier from his own trench. On Christmas Eve, both armies sang carols and cheered, and there was very little firing. The Germans called to our men to come and fetch a cigar, and our men told them to come to us. This went on for some time until a bold Tommy crept out and stood between the trenches, and a Saxon came to meet him. They shook hands and laughed. Thus the ice was broken. Our men are speaking to them now. German Corporal Joseph Wenzel was similarly amazed at the gathering, writing, "What I believed to be madness several hours ago, I could see now with my own eyes. Bavarians and English, until then the greatest of enemies, shook hands, talked, and exchanged items. A single star stood still in the sky directly above them, interpreted by many as a special sign from heaven. More and more joined, and the entire line greeted each other. For the rest of my life, I shall never forget this scene," which goes to show that human feelings continue to go on, even if, in these times, men do not know anything but killing and murdering.
Seriously,
but not everybody held fire. British rifleman John Erskine's unit was fraternizing in no man's land when a soldier, disobeying his officer's order, shot one of the Germans. He writes, "The Germans immediately replied, and instead of firing on where the shot came from, they fired at the first person they saw. Unfortunately, this happens to be one of our corporals, who was shot through the head. A most regrettable fact connected with the affair was that he has 3 brothers in the battalion, and it must have had a disheartening effect on them. The Germans apologized, but it left a black mark on the day. Still, in many places the peace held, until the generals ended it with artillery." The spirit of the Christmas truce would be rekindled the following year.
What the fuck, man? Here's Christmas truce. People are, showing bravery just by shaking hands and walking in no man's land. Some asshole shoots somebody, then obviously they retaliate, somebody else die. They still held their cool at that point, right? At this point, you would think that all the, truce would have gone out of the window after that shooting. No, they still held out, right? That's how much tired they were by this war. And generals in the end did their artillery. This is just fucked up.
Albeit on a small scale. In December of 1915, French soldier Louis Barthas found himself in a spontaneous ceasefire when heavy rain forced both sides to abandon their trenches. He wrote, "Frenchmen and Germans looked at each other and saw that they were all men, no different from one another. They smiled, exchanged comments. Hands reached out and grasped. We shared tobacco, a canteen of coffee, or Pinard. One day, a huge devil of a German stood up on a mound and gave a speech, which only the Germans could understand word for word, but everyone knew what it meant because he smashed his rifle on a tree stump, breaking it in 2. Applause broke out on both sides. Meanwhile, our big-shot leaders were in a furor. What in the Lord's name would happen if the soldiers refused to kill each other?"
Yeah.
German soldier Hermann Bauer, also present,
Humanity restored, civilization go back to being society. We can't have that shit. We need war. See, this is the ridiculous thing about this. This just shows you the World War I was, the goal of World War I was just stupid. Right? People, all the other countries trying to expand, and it wasn't like World War II. Hitler, one enemy, Nazis, there you go. One singular enemy that we have to defeat. It wasn't black and white like that. World War One was just world at each other's throat, right? Nations at war for some stupid thing here and there and some greed. Basically, this is what that's so like. This level of war can only be justified if it's for some goal like Hitler and Nazi, like happened in World War Two. But World War One didn't have anything like that. World War One just was like any other normal war before that, just for some stupid territorial dispute, right? Some nations trying to flex basically that we are more powerful, leaders trying to flex something like that. But at this level of war, that was World War One. The flexing wasn't enough. That's what manifested here. Like Christmas and everybody's like, what the fuck are we doing? Everybody just came together. That's why this is a weird scenario whole.
Was thinking much the same. He wrote, "The infantry does not shoot anymore, just the crazy artillery. The masters make war, they have a quarrel, and the workers, the little men, have to stand there fighting against each other. Is that not a great stupidity?"
Yeah.
Once again, senior officers broke the truce with artillery and court-martial threats. The fighting began again, and Barthas would spend 3 more Christmases at war. The same was true for many others. In fact, Christmas of 1916 brought Canadian infantryman John McLean his first taste of combat. He wrote, "Dear Mother, I haven't written for over a week now, but I couldn't very well. We went into the trenches on Christmas Eve and were in for 6 days. It was not too bad at all, far better than I expected. All our fellows came out fine, except Jack Ivner, who got a machine gun bullet through the leg. The noise was awful, but a person will get used to that after a while. I spent Christmas Day in a dugout. If I live to be 300 years old, I will never forget this Christmas week. One night, I was going up a trench, and I saw a big gray cat sitting on the parapet. I'd like to tell you more, but I can do that when I get home. Now you are doing too much worrying. We are all right if a man is careful."
What the fuck? How is that possible? Gunfighting is happening in this no man's land, trenches, and where a cat is, it's like, fuck it. I think somebody brought the cat. Some soldier brought the cat. That must be the case.
A month later, he was dead. Meanwhile, another Canadian, Jack Davy, was having a bittersweet Christmas. He had come home after months in a POW camp, only to find himself at a military hospital in Toronto, thousands of miles from his new fiancée. He wrote to her on Boxing Day, "Darling Kitty, many thanks for the letter and the card with Christmas wishes. We had quite a snowstorm on Christmas Eve. It's quite a novelty to see a real white Christmas. Yesterday was a lovely day. On the whole, I had a good time, but I hope next year won't be such a disappointment for us, sweetheart. Surely this rotten luck of being separated at Christmas can't go on forever. 1 week has passed since I was measured for my leg. I wish that I could have it by the new year so I could start the year on both feet again. It will soon be 2 years since I walked like a human being. It seems a long time to talk about it, but I can picture those fields and imagine I can see the exact spot where I fell, as though it only happened yesterday. I guess it'll be a long day before I forget it. But I hope that all the dark days are behind us now, sweetheart. We just have to be happy and live long to make up for it all." As the war ended and the veterans trickled home, that is exactly what they tried to do. Yet their holidays spent in the shadow of dugouts would never fully leave them. There are so many letters like these. Honestly, deciding which ones to include was the hardest part. But if this happened to capture your imagination, try something later. If you go home for the holidays, or if you happen to already be there, ask your relatives if they have any old letters lying around. It's possible that the next story from the trenches might come from your own family. Happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you next year.
God damn. This is a heavy video, man. Christmas Truce. Because I like to psychoanalyze things, like, lots of you regular viewers know. Basically, they started this war, right? Just seeing enemy as enemy, not as human being, or they're just evil pieces of shit, basically. That's what they envisioned every time they came to the war field, right? They shot at each other, and it was just becoming too much, because this was First World War. Why? Because entire world at each other's throat. It's Europe, but every other place is also European colony, so it's a world war. But this is at the scale that it has never before this time, I guess. This is the First World War. That's why they called it the Great War. And the Great War's goal wasn't much of a goal. It was just like any other territorial dispute, people flexing, like I said. That is not enough of a goal, for people to, I guess, rally at this scale, right? So everybody was fighting because their country was telling them to fight. Their people in power was telling them to fight. It was a ridiculous thing for this scale. So everybody, obviously, when Christmas came, everybody's like, man, this is Christmas. And everybody just, called it a truce and then really saw, wait a minute, I'm not fighting some evil asshole. There's no difference between them and me. He just happens to be living in different country. That's it. And we're shooting at each other. We are literally ending each other's life for fucking what? We are literally the same. Why? Because certain people tell us to do that. So it was a surreal experience after, months and even years of killing, right? People, when they, experience something like this, Christmas truce, it's just weird, right? Like, what the fuck? So this is some, fucked up scenario. And that letter that he basically told the Canadian, that shows how fucked up this time was and how fucked up World War I was. That he didn't live to, go back there and tell, whatever he was writing to his mother or something about the cat because he died. Because, fatality rate was pretty high at that time, right, in the world wars. So it's just fucked up that it's not a goal of, ridding the world of some evil power like Nazis and Hitler. No, it's just World War I. So somebody shot an Austrian. It just gave excuse to lots of people in power, and they just created this war. And it just escalated at this level. That's just fucked up. Alright, people, if you like my Rick, don't forget to subscribe. Check out the Rick Sandy. There's a link in the description. Check out the cards. Check out the ink cards. And yeah, I'll see you next time.